You are listening to the world's only podcast about Dungeons and Dragons advice. No plan, no problem.
You're alright. Hey, hey, hey.
I'm alright.
Hey, hey, hey.
We're alright.
Hey, hey, hey.
All together, alright.
Hey everybody, and welcome to No Plan, No Problem, a weekly D&D advice podcast where two Dungeon Masters set out on an epic journey to find 3 actionable tips for you to use in your next game. I'm your Dungeon Master, Anto.
And I'm your Doggen Master, Matthew Perkins.
You can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
And all my stuff is over at matthewperkins.net. Today, I made a little bit of a dog joke, and that's because we're talking about Gnolls. Gnolls are... well, I don't want to say dog people, but they're pretty much like dog people. They're like hyena people. So imagine somebody with covered fur. They've got a big hyena head. They're typically pretty nasty as well. They're like demon-spawned hyena people. They hunt in packs. They've got a bunch of different variants, and they all kind of synergize together on the battlefield. They're... ooh, well, I don't want to get into it too early. Hey, Anto.
Yes.
Who is the first adventurer helping us with our first tip about Gnolls?
So the first adventurer helping us on this quest is Adam Special over on D&D Next, the subreddit. And their question essentially boils down to what is going to happen if I switch goblins for gnolls in any particular module. So if a module calls for goblins and I switch them out for gnolls, what should I be aware of?
Okay, he's hitting us with the old Adam Special, I see.
Yes.
Not even a good joke. It wasn't worth it. It's a crap joke. Okay, let's just keep going. Goblins are typically like your level 1, your entry level baddies, right? Usually when the party first starts out, they're punching goblins. Well, gnolls are a little bit more powerful than goblins for one. Like, goblins are CR 1 out of 8, 1/8, and then gnolls are, what, 1/4? 1/2?
Goblins are 1/4, gnolls are 1/2.
Oh, okay. Ooh, glad that the Dungeon Master here.
Gnolls are a little bit more powerful in terms of stats. They've got a bit more HP. Well, they've got 3 times as much HP.
It's a bit more powerful.
So they're, a little bit more survivable. And they are... I don't think they're any more likely to hit. I think in terms of damage output on a regular attack, they're going to be about the same.
Well, here's a thought. What if we split this up? Okay, the question is, what happens if I put gnolls in place of goblins for this low-level campaign? Because that's what you use goblins for.
Yeah.
We can work this out as what it's going to do to your game mechanically, because they have different stat blocks, and then also what it's going to do to your narrative, because they're going to have different motivations. Yeah. And I think mechanically, we've already covered that gnolls are a bit more powerful, right? I think that gnolls are a specialized creature in the sense that, like, they are designed to just keep attacking. Gnolls have this special ability called rampage, which means when they drop someone to 0 hit points, they get to move half their speed and attack again. So when they drop you, they're more likely to keep dropping people. They are designed to kill. Whereas goblins, their special ability is hiding, which is still pretty deadly when you take like the advantage from being hidden into account, but it's a different kind of feeling. One's hiding, one's munching.
I think that the special abilities of goblins are going to come up more in a combat than gnolls, because gnolls' rampage ability is kind of predicated on them taking you to 0 HP, which is going to happen far fewer times than a goblin's ability to disengage as a bonus action, because that makes goblins super maneuverable around the battlefield, because they can just dip in and out of fights and move themselves around at will.
But I think that when a Gnoll's ability does go off, when it does pop off with its rampage ability, when it gets you down to 0, it is more likely that it's going to cascade into more players dropping to 0, I think, because it's designed to knock on, I reckon.
Yeah, they reduce it to 0 and then they get to move and make a bite. So you're increasing their action economy, which if you've got a bunch of them, is going to be a big deal. I think that mechanically, probably the biggest difference is just that gnolls do have 3 times the amount of HP, so they're much more survivable. So it's gonna they're gonna feel like they're taking a lot longer to kill than a goblin will.
Yeah, there's going to be fewer gnolls on the battlefield. Okay, well, I think that you can adjust for that. Dungeon masters are masters of balance. What about this? What about the story elements, though? Do you know much about the way gnolls behave in the lore, Anto? Do you know the gnoll lore?
So the way I always approach Gnolls, because the official lore very rarely bothers me too much, but for me, Gnolls are more threatening than goblins. So I think there's such a kind of stigma around goblins because they are the kind of classic first thing you fight. You fight some goblins, they tend to run away a lot. Players expect an easy fight when they're fighting goblins, I think. So when you throw some gnolls at them, because they are 3 times as survivable as a goblin, it sends a message of, right, okay, now you're dealing with serious things now as a party.
Yeah. Whenever I am trying to think about whether a creature is a dramatic enough threat to the parties, I give it the Perkins test, which is if I saw that creature in real life, would I think, no, I could take it? And here's the thing, I couldn't take anything, right? But if I saw a goblin, I'd be like, look, I'm a shot. You may be like 30% shot here, but I got a shot. If I looked at a gnoll, I'd go, yeah, I'm boned. This is done. Peace out.
Exactly. Like you expect an easy fight out of a goblin. When you encounter a gnoll, it's not necessarily, you don't immediately think, right, I've got this, it's fine.
There is a bit of a tricky component here, though, because a goblin as a creature has a personality. A goblin is pretty much a person. If I were to categorize it as a monster or a person, it's a person. It's just a person who is being kind of mean.
Yeah.
But a gnoll is definitely in the monster category. It is literally a force of hunger and fear and anger, right? They are possessed by those primal, well, not primal, but those basic instincts.
Yeah, the Monster Manual specifically mentions them having a thirst for blood and all these kinds of things. So there's definitely more of a monster element to the way they're presented in the Monster Manual than there is with goblins.
Yeah, and that's going to impact your story because suddenly you have creatures that are being your villains that don't have a lot of nuance to them in the official lore. Of course, you can home rule this any way you want. You can say, oh, my gnolls don't behave that way, and that's totally fine. That's totally reasonable. But if you're playing it according to the book, the player's handbook or the monster manual book, then they're going to be basically evil. So, oh man, I just remember we have to find a tip. I keep forgetting what we're doing here. I don't know if we have anything.
I mean, as often is the case, our tip might be to change things to suit yourself. But I use gnolls slightly differently to how they're presented in the book. So in my current campaign, gnolls were like the tier 1 baddie for my players. They encountered a lot of gnolls over the course of multiple adventures, and gnolls played a fairly big part in that kind of first few levels worth of play. And the way I was running gnolls is they were basically the war boys from Mad Max.
Oh, so yeah.
My campaign takes place in the desert. So they would have these huge war bands that would roam across the desert, and they would, play like ritual music, and there'd be a sorcerer firing off flames into the air, like the guitar guy from Fury Road. And
witness me.
Yeah, and I really played into that kind of ferocity as part of their culture. And up until looking at the stat block for gnolls, like just before we recorded this, I've been running them with the pack tactics trait the entire time. So they are much more deadly in a group. But they don't actually have that trait.
I thought they had that trait as well. I was actually only found out today they didn't as well, because I think I've been doing the same thing. Yeah, that's really fun. I actually like that idea. So how do we condense that into a tip?
How do we condense that into a tip? I think giving them pack tactics definitely ramps up their threat. And it plays really well into that kind of hyena element, because I think that's why I think that they have pack tactics, because I'm pretty sure that hyenas do, and you usually find them together.
That should be the tip. Use hyenas and gnolls together. And then you've got this ecosystem and synergizing abilities, because you've got the rampage and you've got the pack tactics. Can that be the tip? Can it be like to use them with hyenas?
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever use them without hyenas again.
We did it. Hey, let's roll for promotion.
Let's do this.
Oh, wait. Is it called roll for sponsorship?
I don't know. Roll for promotions works perfectly well. This episode is sponsored by SideQuest, the new monthly RPG magazine from me, your friendly neighborhood Anto. It's a magazine that's coming out on my Patreon every month, and it's going to be filled with awesome stuff, usable content like rules and mechanics, new adventures, new articles to inspire you. My goal with every issue is for you to come away thinking, oh, I'm really excited to try X or implement this in my game.
It's so exciting. I can't wait to get my copy. It's like, I'm going to get a free copy, right? You're going to send me one over, mail it through the old post?
Yeah, of course. Well, you know, we'll talk about it later.
Okay. That's a no. I've been told no before, and that's definitely a no. No freebies for me. Hey, you are listening to No Plan, No Problem at the moment, which is this beautiful little podcast. And if you want to support us, one of the best things you can do is listen regularly on your favorite podcasting app, leave a comment downstairs in the YouTube stuff about this particular episode if we've missed anything, if you have any comments to say about this topic of Gnolls, and also to leave 5-star reviews with comments on the iTunes Apple podcast thing, whatever they're calling it. You know, the Apple Zone where the music happens and also podcasts. There. Go there. Give us 5-star reviews, please. We really appreciate support. We really need it. We've also got a Patreon. We've got our own stuff. SideQuest is great, but have you heard of whatever we do on our Patreon? That could be yours as well. Your plug for your stuff was way better than my plug for our stuff. I'm doing a bad job. Can we get back to the episode?
Let's do it.
All right, Anto, do you have your passport ready? You got your ticket? You ready to...
All packed and ready.
All right, let's John Denver this. We are going to Statstown. Statstown is a little segment where Anto and I we pretty much do what we did in the last segment, except we don't have a question. We don't have anybody helping us with it. We're just going to riff on some ideas about gnolls. Specifically, I want to stat up something for other animal-like creatures. Because a gnoll is that what they did is they did Jeff Goldblum The Fly, except they did it with a hyena and a boy, right? I want to do stuff with like a boy and, I don't know, a horse. And a boy and a fly, copyright Jeff Goldblum. What do you reckon?
I think
what are
that
your
we
ideas?
can do this. I think that if we're doing this, the approach that we should take, we don't need to worry about the actual stats themselves. I think where we want to put our focus is on whatever our equivalent of rampage is. So I think rampage is kind of the aggressive hyena made into a hyena man rule. So we want to make a rule that fits like a horse boy. Isn't that just a centaur?
No, very distinct, legally distinct. Honestly, if you call a horse boy a centaur, you are going to get kicked in the guts, my friend. Okay, so we're just going to focus on the trademark ability of that combination, and we're going to quickfire it. Okay. And it has to be something that doesn't exist already in D&D, because there's already fish boys, right?
Yeah,
there's already cat boys.
There are fish boys, there are cat boys. Rabbit would have been one of my suggestions, but we got rabbit in a recent Unearthed Arcana.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I go on. Slug boys. So they're slug people. And their trademark ability. Oh, no. Slugs are functionally useless in society.
No. Slug's trademark ability is their mucus, which gives them advantage on grapple checks.
Oh, how's that? Yeah. Or like, what about if their ability is something like they leave the space that they occupied last, it becomes difficult terrain as well.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
And it kind of fades over time. Okay, that's good. Okay, can I claim that I did that one and then you have to do one?
Yeah, of course.
Good. Okay, that was mine. That was my great idea. The slug boy. Now it's your turn. Let's see what you got,
I think that
kid.
we'd be doing a disservice to all the furries out there if we didn't do fox people. My go is fox people. And I would say that we want to make use of kind of the fox's like sly cunning.
The only thing I've ever seen a fox do is there's this girl on YouTube who has a fox named Finnegan Fox, and he just laughs. He's really cute. They're beautiful.
I think that maybe giving them some kind of social ability that means that they maybe get kind of advantage or some kind of bonus on deception or persuasion or one of the social abilities, or maybe charisma checks, something like that would play into it. That's a pretty middle of the road safe option for them.
Okay, But do you think that's going to be useful in it? Let's just talk about what we're aiming for here. We're looking for creatures, or are we looking for stat blocks, like combat stat blocks? Because is it social ability useful in a stat block? I'm challenging you, Anto.
That's a very good question. If we're looking for creatures like monster manual creatures, then social abilities I don't think have any place in those stat blocks. If we're talking about how we can take an animal and make it into an animal person that potentially someone could play, then maybe it's a different story.
Yeah, look, I think I want to do combat stuff. Okay, well we need a fox.
I've got the miscellaneous creatures open. I can't think of one for fox, so I say we do the noble thing and quit foxes. Badgers.
Okay, yeah. They're blind and they dig, right? Maybe they have blind sight.
Blind sight could definitely work. When I think of a badger, I think of how notoriously aggressive they are. So my first thought goes to giving them some kind of rage style mechanic, like make all badgers like mini barbarians. Badger people get a mini rage, so they can use it like once a day, increase their strength, maybe get an extra attack. Mini badger rage.
I want to do crab people. Do they exist?
I don't think crab people exist, but I'm here for crab people. So what are you thinking their special ability would be?
When they get hit with an attack,
Mhm.
they can retroactively apply disadvantage to that attack as a reaction or something.
Yeah.
Or like a once per day or whatever. And if they succeed in making that attack miss, then they get to move one square laterally, like sideways, as they
nice.
scuttle out of the way.
I like that. Yeah.
But as they do it, they do like the ah-cha-cha-cha.
Yeah. No, I like that. That's cool. Crocodile people.
Oh, yeah, those are my people. Yeah, crocs.
Yeah.
What you got?
So I would give them something. The key thing of crocodiles when I think of them is the way they'll kind of bite onto something and then spin round. So I'd want to give them something like that. So maybe give them like automatic grapple attached to their bite attack. And then if you succeed the grapple, have them rag the creature that they've bitten around for a little bit of extra damage.
Yeah, that's really fun. Especially like that, like their subsequent attack, there is movement involved in that, you are now in a different square because he is just thrashing you around.
Yeah.
I want bee people. I want to bee people, you know, because they have so much cool thematic stuff going on with them. Like they do all that stuff where like they always know where the queen is or whatever, and they have pheromones and they sense stuff. So I'd like to think that their ability, it would probably be a sting, right? But I don't want to do that. I think I want to do something with like, they do that thing, bees, where if there's like a wasp, they will like climb on it and they just buzz super hard and it generates heat and they just cook that sucker. They cook him like a wasp under some bees.
Yeah.
So I would like to think that if they have like a flank on you, any creature they have a flank on, two bees, they generate heat between that and you take damage at the start of your turn. Guaranteed fire damage.
That's cool. I really like that. Yeah, that's really cool.
Oh, that was really hard.
I like that a lot.
That was so difficult. I'm bleeding now.
So thinking about that idea of multiple creatures synergizing together, I really like the idea of piranha people.
Oh.
And if you can get a flank off with two or more piranha people, then either maybe they do extra damage with their attacks as they're like biting off all your bits, or if they reduce you to 0 HP while you're between multiples of them, they just go into a feeding frenzy.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you know what? When you've just said this, you have solidified? Solid fight? Can you say that word that I'm trying to say?
Solidified.
Thank you. You have solidified the tip in my mind. Do you mind if I do this?
Go for it.
I reckon the tip should be, even if you're not using flanking rules in your game, traditional flanking rules being when two creatures are on either side of an enemy, they're attacking with advantage. Even if you're not doing that particular version of flanking rules, there are other cool effects you can tie to flanking that isn't that advantage.
Yeah.
Like this fire damage with these creatures or the piranha boys getting all chompy. Like flanking is still something cool you can do outside of the advantage element.
Yeah, I think that is a really good tip. I think
I'm actually excited by that.
Yeah, that's something like I would definitely want to use in my next game and incorporate kind of the cooperation between creatures.
Yeah, And like just some creatures, it's just, hey, these specific creatures have this special synergy. And you, my friendly player, are boned.
Yes.
Now, Anto, we have one more adventurer helping us with a tip. Who is it? What are they doing?
Oh, it's me reading it. Okay, so the last adventurer that's going to be helping us with our tips is CD83 from the DM Academy over on Reddit. And they say, the player wants to be a gnoll. What's the most official way to do this? So I don't think that the most official part, I don't think really matters because the gnoll player characters do exist, don't they?
No, they don't. No. Hey, I don't think they do. Remember, in the lore of... Hey, let me just put in my actually voice. Actually, in the lore of Dungeons & Dragons, gnolls are typically evil and chaotic and insanely evil, and that you could never play one in a party. You can't... It's not official. There's no official rules for it.
Well,
I've become really sassy with this voice.
You've gotten progressively sassier.
It's official.
I'm here for it, though. In that case, I say, sucks to that. Let's make some gnolls.
Yeah, eggs to that, whatever that means. Let's make some gnolls. Yes, you absolutely can play a gnoll player character in the right circumstances, with the right kind of gnoll. And what it just means is that you're not playing gnolls as the evil demon spawn that the book wants them to be.
Yeah, you're playing them as their own individual people, like they should be.
Have you ever seen a gnoll in like a different media franchise at all, Anto? Or have you only seen them in D&D and like fantasy role-playing games?
I think I might have only seen them in fantasy and D&D.
Well, I was really surprised when I read up about gnolls in D&D and saw that they were so evil. Because my first introduction to gnolls was in a JRPG on the PlayStation 1 called Suikoden. And it was like a, your typical spiky haired boy going on adventure quest. But there were some gnolls in it that were just like dog people. Like one had like the head of a Labrador, another one had like a different kind of dog's head. And they were lovely. Like they were really earnest characters. They lived in the woods. They joined the team. It was so cool. Yeah, I would love to redeem the gnoll with a good player character option.
Yeah, I think that most of it is pretty like making a playable race is relatively easy in the broad sense because a lot of it doesn't matter. Like their size, their speed, the languages they speak, those things don't really matter. So all you're needing to do is find out what their signature rule is, because every race has some kind of signature rule. So we just need to figure out what the gnolls playable race would be.
I think that like for all of the numbers and the stats, I would just say you're a tabaxi. Just use tabaxi for everything and take away like the climbing ability that tabaxi have, and then actually maybe give them the rampage ability.
Yeah.
As a player character, if you drop someone to 0, then you can move half your speed and make an attack.
Yeah.
And if you go, that's a bit too powerful, then just change it to you can move half your speed, because that's still really cool.
Yeah, that's still something that a player character is going to be able to do much more than a monster.
Yeah. They drop people all the time.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. If your gnoll ever comes up against gnolls, I do want to see an existential crisis. Okay, well, here's a question, though. Let's say we have sorted out the mechanics of it, because I think we have. We're not too fussed about the numbers or the special ability there. We've got it sorted. But if you were having a player character be a gnoll, do you think that means that you should reshape gnolls so that they're different, so that they can be productive members of society? Or do you think that means that this player character is the exception and most other gnolls are literally demons?
I think that having gnolls be literal demons is rarely going to be narratively interesting unless you make it a really strong focus of your campaign. Like, unless that's what your campaign is about, then just having them be demons isn't as interesting as having them be, just flawed individuals. If I was going to do it, I would have, because in my current campaign, a lot of the gnolls are out there being war boys in the desert. A player character gnoll there is going to be a degree of social stigma associated with that, but it's not just inherent to the fact that they're a gnoll. It's the fact that the only interaction most people have had with gnolls is via these, Mad Max warboy parties. So it's not that
Mm.
gnolls are evil, it's that every gnoll I've ever met has tried to carry me off into the desert.
And not in a fun way. Not in like a, we are the champions,
Yeah.
my Gnolls. Dun,
Not-
dun, dun.
Not in you've won a grand prize on your holiday and we're going to take you out into the desert for like a rave.
Yeah, it was crazy. Like, these Gnolls came over and they did the chairlift on me. I was like,
Oh
oh,
my
this is
God.
great. And then they just started biting the hell. They bit me so many times. There's so many bites.
Here's
Where's my legs?
here's how you should run gnolls.
Okay.
Gnolls should be frat boys.
Oh, no.
And
no.
they just come
Veto.
to carry you off into the desert and like do keg stands with you.
Dude, this Gnoll vomited in the back of my car for like 12 minutes and then fell asleep on top.
Oh.
I could get him out of here. He said, witness me? I don't know what that means. Look, I think there is a little bit of juice. Not much. Because let me rephrase this. I don't generally like the idea of having a player play a race or a kind of character that is visibly gonna put other characters off. Because I never want that situation of other NPCs or the world reacting to the player character and being like, oh, I see that you are an undesirable kind of type of person to have. Or like, I look at you and I make a judgment. I'm not interested as a storyteller in telling that kind of story. It makes me feel icky. That said, there is a little bit of juice in the idea of a player character playing one of the only redeemed peoples of this particular kind of demon, right?
Yeah.
And them trying to redeem themselves further or even redeem other gnolls. Like that's narratively interesting, even though it could be pretty uncomfortable to play.
I think that one way that you can approach a situation like that is remove some of the onus from the player and have it be that there is a group or a sect of gnolls who are breaking away from this kind of demonic perception that people have of them, and they are actively working to do good, and the player character is one of this kind of gnoll, so that NPCs and other characters can have that separation and recognize that, oh, I immediately see that this is one of the good gnolls, for lack of a better word, and it means that they're not, that every interaction they have isn't predicated on that, oh my god, you're a gnoll.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. If you flavor the Gnolls' demonic evilness as some kind of possession of them being tied to their evil Gnoll god, and they become good by severing that.
Yeah.
And there's maybe even like Gnolls are hunched over in the way that they look, right? They're hunched and they're scowling. Maybe like you can tell a good one because, hey, their posture is all fixed, right?
Yeah.
And people look at you like, oh, that's not a bad boy. That's a good boy. Good. And they give you a little pat. Good boy.
There's a kind of storyline in the Skyrim video game where you meet a group of characters who worship like a hunter god, and they manifest as werewolves. And I think that as part of that storyline, they can sever ties with that god of the hunt, and they kind of regain some of their own faculties and their own agency from that. And I think that could be an interesting take on Gnolls, that they all kind of worship this like Lord of the Hunt, and that these player character Gnolls are ones that have kind of broken away from that. And then you start to bring a society into it. It's not just, oh, Gnolls are evil, Gnolls are mindless. It's Gnolls are part of this worship system, this kind of religion surrounding this particular god, and you give evidence that they're not all bound to that and that they have their own minds, and some of them have broken away from that.
Yeah, that's a really good idea, especially because that lets you have both, have your player character and have your villains. Hey, can you articulate a tip somehow from this? Can you boil it down in your big boy brain and then spew it back out into the podcast, please? Like a frat boy in the back of a car.
So I think the tip would be, if your player wants to play as an ancestry that traditionally has been viewed as evil, that you can allow them to do that, and you don't necessarily have to rewrite that ancestry's entire history and say, right, okay, all Gnolls aren't actually evil. There are ways that you can still say, right, some of these Gnolls do things that can be seen as evil because of reasons, and you put the reasons in place to make it make sense, and then say, but these player characters have used their agency to say, no, we're different to that. We're going to choose a different path. And doing that adds a new layer of nuance to what would otherwise be a evil race.
Very good. I can feel so much breathing room here at the end of the podcast. Oh, look at the sky. It's so blue. We've escaped from that miasma of not having done a podcast, which was a little while ago.
Okay, so the tips. This podcast has tips, and those tips are... The first tip was to use hyenas along with your gnolls to get some of that juicy synergy and utilize some of those pack tactics.
Teamwork.
The second tip was to incorporate flanking more, but not necessarily the actual flanking rules, but give creatures special abilities that only trigger when they are flanking or working with other creatures of their type.
Teamwork again.
And then the third tip was to not be afraid to both change and embrace the lore of the game to make new playable characters out of traditionally evil ancestry.
And that one's not teamwork, but I want to have said it 3 times, so teamwork. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for listening. So this has been No Plan, No Problem. My name is Matthew Perkins. You can find my stuff over at matthewperkins.net.
And my name is Anto, and you can find my stuff at icarus-games.co.uk.
All right, everybody, the song that plays us out every time, every week, is called All Together by a band called House Hats. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. And
I'm alright.
next
I'm
crime.
alright.
Hey, hey, hey.
We're alright. We're alright.
Hey, hey, hey.
All together. Alright.
Here's my opinion. Here's what I'd take. I'd say more Matt on the podcast. Give me more wines. Get rid of this Anto guy. Ugh, sick of him.
Yeah, you just record 2 takes, one in which you speak and then the other in which you react to yourself.
I'll do your voice as well. Hey, everybody. I can't do it. I'm sorry, Michael
Just-
Caine.
Oh,
I can only say...
okay.
I'm Anto from Icarus Games, Master Wayne.
G'day, everybody. I'm Matt.
Oh, no.